American democracy is the greatest experiment in self-governance in the history of the world. However, we are not impervious to political gridlock impacting our system. And we've got to be very mindful of it.
And it happens at all levels, whether it's at the local level, the state level, the federal level. People get agendas, and people forget that it's about people, not politics.
Yeah.
And we want to implement policies that are good for the people, that are not good for us personally. And that's why I do what I do, is because I love my city. I say Vista's like my little sister. I can talk bad about her, but nobody else can. And at the end of the day, I want to put her up on a pedestal and be like, look how beautiful my baby sister is. Everybody, welcome to another episode of Councilman's Corner with Joe Green. Now, this is an amazing special episode because I have with me in studio our very own Congressman Mike Levin. Hello, Congressman Levin. How are you?
Joe, I am always happy to see you, and I think the world is a better place for your having this show.
That's what I like to hear. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, okay? So Mike Levin is a SoCal native. He currently serves our community in Washington, D.C. He serves in the House of Representatives as the congressman for the 49th District. Mike was first elected in 2018, re-elected in 2020, 2022, 2024, 2026, I don't know how many, get him re-elected. But Mike serves on the House Committees for Natural Resources, Veterans Affairs, along with the Select Committee on Climate Crisis. The congressman studied law at Duke University and political science at Stanford. Mike has lots of titles and a ton of responsibility. But knowing this man personally, I am confident that his favorite titles are husband and dad. So Mike has been married to his lovely wife, Chrissy, for 11 years, and he will be celebrating his 12th wedding anniversary in the next couple weeks.
Yep.
And Mike is the proud daddy. Father's a thing, but daddy's a big deal, okay? He is the daddy of two spectacular children, one boy and one girl, Jonathan, who I know here goes by JP.
You got it.
And Elizabeth, who goes by Lizzie.
You're good, Joe.
I try really hard.
I'm impressed.
I have an Elena who goes by Laney, and I'm like, what was wrong with Elena, Laney? So anyways, well, that's who we have here today, and really, I'm just glad you're in here, Mike. So,
I'm honored to be with you, man. Good. Thank you for having me.
Good. Well, without people like you doing what you do in Washington, people like me don't get to be the boots on the ground in our city.
No, I'm grateful to you and for all the things you're doing in the city of Vista. You really have made this a much stronger community in the last several years you've been serving. So I thank you.
That's what I like to hear. I say, if your jaws don't hurt from smiling at the end of the day, we're doing it wrong, Mike.
Perfect.
So we want to make sure we're smiling. Just because we have important jobs doesn't mean we can't have fun.
Absolutely.
So the reason I wanted to have you in here today is I wanted to know a little bit more about you and also kind of what you're doing for Vista and how we can utilize your office and your resources more for our community. So in order to keep my ADHD in line over here, we did make a list of questions for you. So really just kind of to start is, tell me a little about yourself, your family, and kind of what made you decide to represent our district in this capacity?
Well, I'll tell you, I am so grateful for my wife and for her being just a rock in our family because I couldn't do this without her. So I'm glad you brought her
Hallelujah.
up. And I spend far too much time away from my wife and kids. That's the hardest part of this job, including right now.
Thank you, Chrissy. We appreciate
exactly.
you.
I'm going to make sure she listens to
Please
this.
Please do.
But I decided to run. I'd been involved in environmental law, environmental policy for a long time, about 15 years, and I really didn't like the direction that we were headed with regard to our climate, our planet, protecting our environment, and really growing the economy with all those jobs of the future in clean energy, electrifying our transportation, trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, everything from the way that we generate electricity, the way that we build buildings, the way that we move goods and people around, the way we grow food, all of it needs to be dramatically improved. And that had been a lot of my professional background, and I didn't see the kind of leadership that I had hoped to see in Washington, D.C., and I decided to do something about it myself. I always thought I might be interested in public service of some sort. I didn't necessarily think that meant elected office, but when 2018 came around, it was an extraordinary opportunity, and sometimes you just have to take a chance, and we did. And I had a very accepting wife, thank God. And we wound up working really hard, and we won that race. And we're very fortunate to be able to serve the community for the last 5 years.
Nice.
And I was part of the select committee on the climate crisis. Unfortunately, Speaker McCarthy discontinued the select committee, but I am proud of the fact that a lot of what I set out to do in the first number of years has actually come to fruition. So we've seen the biggest investments in climate, in renewable energy, in the history of the United States, really the history of any country. And now it's an implementation phase where a lot of those investments, we have a lot of different policies that are great policies, but if you don't act on them, if you don't see them through, then we're not going to get the emissions reductions that we need. And that's what it's all about. So on top of that, I'm the grandson of a World War II veteran.
Okay.
So I care very deeply about our service members. He really instilled in me a great deal of respect for those that are serving our country and for veterans as well.
And you work on that committee, right? The Veterans Committee?
I do. And what I didn't know when I got to Washington is that I would find that work really more rewarding than any other work.
Okay.
Number one, you actually see the impact in a lot more tangible way, a lot more feasible way. So you see the veterans that you're helping. You know, a lot of times when we talk about environmental policy or climate change, things like that, it can be a little bit theoretical.
Yeah, and it's more of a long-term plan.
It's a long-term plan.
It's not instant gratification per se.
Right. But when you see that there's a veteran that you were able to help because of a particular program or because your office was able to work with them and provide connection to services for them, that's really for me been a tremendous, a great reason for wanting to keep doing this because it's not easy.
And I know, we're obviously super close here to Camp Pendleton. I know you represent them as well. Do you have an actual Veterans Affairs specialist in your office that people can contact?
We have three.
That wasn't even a question, but let's just go ahead and pitch that. What's the number if somebody's watching and they're a veteran and they're struggling and they need to get in touch? Who can they call in your office as a veteran to get some attention?
So we have 3 veterans, Casey, Keon, and Ashley.
Okay.
And the number is 760-599-5000.
599-5000.
If they call that number, all 3 of them are well-versed on the alphabet super programs at VA.
Okay.
All the different benefits. And, there are a lot of eligibility requirements that have been changed over the years. I'll give you one example. So we have a big problem with veteran homelessness.
Yes.
All throughout, really in Southern California.
Something we've concentrated on as well.
So a lot of it's obviously in Los Angeles. There's quite a bit in the city of San Diego. But when you look at North County, there are still about 100 homeless veterans in North County alone, about 800 or so in San Diego County. And so I want to get all 100 of them into services, into, hopefully housing in the long run. So a couple things. One is about 1.5 years ago, we changed the law. So if you're other than honorably discharged, you still can get those services from VA. So you can get, for example, a VA supportive housing voucher. You can get mental health services. You can get addiction treatment. But some veterans were actually told that they didn't qualify for those services because at the time they didn't.
Wow.
So that's a new law, and that's something that we really need to make sure to spread the word. So just because you
don't qualify for the standard eligibility services of a veteran, it doesn't mean that you don't qualify for other services.
Well, the discharge status, if you're other than honorably discharged, it doesn't necessarily mean you're other than honorable as a human being. In fact, if you are addicted to alcohol, you could be medically discharged. But if you're addicted, say, to opioids, you'd be other than honorably discharged. And so it doesn't really meet the
dishonorable per se, or
it doesn't. It has nothing to do with you being honorable or dishonorable as a person.
Gotcha.
I would argue everybody that wears our uniform and serves our country is very honorable.
Yes.
And so, we said, look, the people that most need that help are the people that aren't getting the help. Wow. And so we changed that law, as I said, in 2021, but we need to make sure veterans know about it. But the work continues. I'd like to see one or more specific projects for veterans, maybe in Vista, Joe. I don't know. Vista, Oceanside, we have a lot of work to do.
Well, we do have Vista, the Artist and Veterans Village, right down here on Paseo, Santa Fe. So if you are a veteran or an artist, you can apply for affordable housing right here in Vista. And that's one thing we tried to do is we know housing affordability and attainability is a huge problem in Southern California. And what we wanted to do is make some type of specific housing. So we have specific for artists and veterans, we have specific senior housing, and we're looking at also doing some workforce housing projects with the school district. So
I love it.
We're doing what we can, my man, and we hope we can count on you to support us too.
Well, not only will you have my sports show, but as I was driving in on Paseo Santa Fe, seeing some of the lots that still need to be redeveloped, I think anything that I can do to help the city, and my team doesn't know I'm going to say this, but sorry in advance, but anything I can do to help the city with those projects, specifically for veterans, I'd love to find ways to partner and to help.
Perfect. And I know veterans is big. We could probably talk about it all day. From an environmental standpoint, I want to make sure you know your work at the federal level has finally trickled down. We were able to get some grants for well waters at our parks. We got grants going in for solar on our government buildings and also solar parking structures. We're a little behind the curve because the school district kind of got all that stuff funded first. But I am happy to say that your advocacy up in Washington has trickled down to California, and it's actually coming to the city of Vista. So thank you for that. Greatly appreciated.
Well, the idea is, we're going to deliver every federal dollar that we can to Vista and throughout our district. And I'm really proud. We've got the bipartisan infrastructure law.
Yes.
Already in our district alone, we've had $94 million, 6 projects totaling $94 million.
$94 million. That's 6 zeros behind the 94.
Correct.
Okay.
Just from that law alone.
And some of the projects we walked as well, right?
Exactly right. So basically, we've got another 3 or 4 years worth of projects just from that law. It's the most significant investment in our nation's infrastructure since the Eisenhower administration. So we're talking 70 years. And this is really a big deal for roads, for bridges, for water systems, recycled water, all sorts of interesting projects that we can fund through the bipartisan infrastructure law. And then there's the community projects funding process as well. And just a couple examples of what we've been doing the last couple of years, $2.2 million for sidewalk improvements and street lighting on Nevada and Lemon Avenue. You and I walked that neighborhood. Some of that area had no sidewalks at all. And now they'll have
a lot of that area has no sidewalks.
Exactly. New sidewalks, new street lights in that community. Then $3 million for the town site complete streets project. That's an area, again, very limited infrastructure. And now you're looking at traffic circles, and it'll be, a lot better there.
And it actually, between you and I, the town site area used to be called East Los Angeles Drive.
Yeah.
So when I moved here from Illinois, I lived at 627 East Los Angeles Drive.
Amazing.
And that was the first place I ever lived, and, kind of how I got my intro into the city of Vista, if you will. So calling it the town site project was in an effort to make it more of a, palatable area for the community and really improve that community. And we've dumped a lot of money into that area. And that was one thing we were really lacking over there, were additional sidewalks and lighting and things. So having you come and jump on there and help that community out, it's great.
At the end of the day, I'd like to think that every year we're going to have the opportunity to invest in Vista with these funds. And we just have to figure out, my role as a federal legislator is not to determine which projects make the most sense for Vista. It's to lean on you and lean on the city council, your city staff, for you to develop that consensus. The other one is Emerald Drive. We're going to get $5 million for Emerald Drive. Really needs a lot of TLC as well. So we'll just knock them out one by one every fiscal year. And what was interesting is, earmarks, they used to be called earmarks. Earmarks got a very negative connotation, and for good reason. They got a negative connotation because a lot of members of Congress were misusing them to line their own pockets or for whatever other purposes. And so when community projects came back in 2020, the idea was to make them totally transparent, where every member, I literally have to sign an affidavit for every single one of those projects. They're all public, and for us, they're all coming from our cities and from our agencies. So I have 10 cities in the district. Every city, we give their top choice. We make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's to give you the best chance of actually getting it across the finish line, getting it funded. And then we've got 2 counties, because I represent not only San Diego County, but Orange County.
California up there. I gotcha.
And we've got 2 transit agencies with Sandag, OCTA, which leaves 1 floater, right? So, it's been the San Diego County Sheriff, Orange County Sheriff. But I'm very proud of all that we've been able to do. And coming into the minority in this last Congress, we were unclear whether the community project funds would continue. And I made the argument to all my friends across the aisle that, look, if we don't spend, as members of Congress, if we don't help direct these funds, then it will be directed by some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. And when I told them it'd be the Biden administration that'd be directing these funds to their districts, said, whoa,
You scared them
whoa.
into compliance. I
the,
love it.
The top line numbers are already agreed to in advance. The question is who's going to spend that money? Who's most knowledgeable about where that money should go.
And that's really why we need guys like you in power who know where the money needs to go. In 2001, we voted on what was called Measure A, and it was an additional gas tax to fix our roads. And actually, that Emerald project that you're talking about was on that Measure A project through those funds. And unfortunately, the funds had to be shifted for other things. As you know, things pop up through government. It's not necessarily people taking away, but as things rise to the top, you kind of have to knock them out. But knowing that we have a community project aspect where, hey, if Sandag can't fund a project, your congressman can step in and get federal funding for an actual project to get done. In that area there off of Emerald, I've lived in Vista my whole life, heading up and down the 78 between the 5 and 15. It gets super backed up. You got two schools over there, and it's really just, not only a traffic hazard, but a public safety hazard. So knowing that you're stepping up and knowing, hey, you see somewhere where it's supposed to be funded that's not funded, and really infusing the funding into it from a federal level, that's huge for us here in Vista, because that's what we expect in our congressmen and in our elected officials. So
well, I appreciate that, man. We're going to keep at it. And, the debt limit deal did, there was a lot of things in the debt limit deal. This was very, it was very touch and go at the end.
I called it juggling fireballs, my friend.
And we were playing with fire, and we can't keep playing with fire. This is no way to run the government. It's really, really backwards way to pay our bills. But the good news is that the community project funds were left intact.
Good.
The top line spending numbers largely left intact. Good. And veterans and military specifically were kept intact. So all those things were things that I fought tooth and nail for, man, because it was not looking great. And we just had to keep fighting, and we'll have to fight again. We've got a lot on our plate coming up between now and the end of September, when if we don't get all of our spending bills across the finish line, then the government will shut down. It isn't, shutdown's not as bad as a default, but it's not very good.
No, you definitely don't want to do that. I couldn't imagine being in your position, the level of responsibility, the time you're away from your family, traveling, and then having to deal with this 40,000 foot perspective of, are we going to have gas at our gas stations next week? And, the whole infrastructure of the entire nation. I deal with it at a microcosm level at the city of Vista, but everything you have on your plate is overwhelming. And then to think every 2 years you got to reapply for your job, my man. So that's tough stuff. So
it would have been, going back to the debt limit for a minute, I don't think the average person understands just how bad it would have been if we'd have defaulted on our debt. So you think about our bondholders, are the people that lent us money, they wouldn't be paid. And that includes $7 trillion that the American people is owed out there. So we wouldn't have been able to pay any of our bondholders. That would have meant interest rates would have gone up. It would have meant that everything would have been more expensive. It would have contributed to inflation, no question about it. We're talking about a 25 to 40% decrease in the stock market's value, which would have hit everybody across the board, their 401ks, their retirement money. We're talking about, though, in the immediate term, 7 million disabled veterans would have gone without a disability check. Tens of millions of Americans who rely on Social Security wouldn't have gotten their checks.
So the direct deposit
either. Wouldn't have come. We wouldn't have any money. Wouldn't have had the money to do it. And this was not a drill. We were down, like the federal government was down to its last 30 billion, give or take. And Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, was not bluffing, which is why we need, and look, I'm all about Congress asserting its authority under the Constitution. For example, the War Powers Act, I think Congress needs to take a much more proactive role in, matters of war and peace than they do today. However, when it comes to the debt ceiling, I don't think it's a good idea for Congress to be deciding at the 11th hour whether the full faith and credit of the United States should be upheld. The people most in favor of the United States defaulting were Russia and China. Wow. They would love nothing more than to demonstrate that American democracy is dysfunctional and that something other than democracy is preferable. Wow. So the fact that we went right down to the 11th hour, that was very negative in terms of the geopolitical impact. But the other thing, our service members wouldn't have been paid.
And our plan moving forward, I would say, we don't want to repeat that again. So
Correct.
have we made a plan moving forward now at the congressional level where we say we're going to start our committee hearings earlier, we're going to start our voting earlier?
There's
Like
a couple ideas. One is that you take it out of Congress's jurisdiction altogether.
But people never like losing power.
Correct. But the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, if read on its face, is fairly clear that the president has the responsibility to make sure our debts are paid.
Okay.
Full stop.
Okay.
Not the Congress. The Congress decides how much we authorize to spend, how much we appropriate. The president executes the laws. The president needs to make sure the debts are paid.
Okay.
And so by that logic, you could have a law, and there is a bill out there right now that would give the Treasury Secretary the unilateral ability to be able to raise the debt limit. Step aside from whose responsibility it is, we have a massive problem with the debt and with deficits in this country. The deficit even this year will be about $1.5 trillion, and our debt is $31.4 trillion and growing. If we do nothing, Joe, if we just continue down the course that we're on today, by the end of the decade, it'll be more like 45 or 50 trillion dollars. And at some point, the percentage of GDP that we are using to just pay off interest on our debt really cripples our ability to grow, cripples our ability for future generations to thrive. So I am a Democrat that is as concerned about debt and deficits as just about anybody. The problem is when we go and we have these discussions, one side, the Republican side, they won't talk about revenues at all. So they won't talk about, closing tax loopholes for billionaires or raising, the corporate rate went from 35% under Obama to 21% under Trump. That was even lower than a lot of Republicans had advocated for at the time. So even bringing it up, we bring it up to 22. They don't want to talk about that. So they don't want to talk about revenues at all. On the other hand, a lot of folks on my side of the aisle don't want to talk about spending at all. What means the result of that is impasse, right? Nothing.
Can't
Gridlock.
get anything done. Yeah.
Gridlock.
If everybody's right, nobody can be wrong, and nobody can get anything done, Mike.
And that doesn't serve anybody.
And so my question to you, and I know we got limited time here, but my question to you is, by allowing the Treasury Secretary and the President to have that authority, does that protect the American people from, exuberant spending and from defaulting on a debt like that in the future?
The debt limit doesn't protect us from exuberant spending.
Okay.
All the debt limit does is force us to pay what we've already, the money that we've already spent. So that just forces us to pay our credit card bill.
Okay, so you're not giving additional power. You're just saying, hey, that the Treasury Secretary and the President should be able to say, regardless of what's going on in the Congress and whatever,
Correct.
we got to pay our bills. So we got to sign that we can pay our bills.
We've got to pay our bills.
Gotcha.
This is of national importance. It's of global importance. We are the currency upon which the entire global community depends.
I was just in Greece.
Exactly. Well, and let's make sure that we learn from the example in Greece and elsewhere.
Yes.
We are not immune. We're the strongest nation. I think American democracy is the greatest experiment in self-governance in the history of the world. However, we are not impervious to political gridlock impacting our system. And we've got to be very mindful of it.
And it happens at all levels, whether it's at the local level, the state level, the federal level. People get agendas, and people forget that it's about people, not politics.
Yeah.
And we want to implement policies that are good for the people, that are not good for us personally. And that's why I do what I do, is because I love my city. I say Vista's like my little sister. I can talk bad about her, but nobody else can. And at the end of the day, I want to put her up on a pedestal and be like, look how beautiful my baby sister is. And I hope that's the way you feel about our district, is that you want to protect them.
There is not a person in Vista that doesn't know that you do love Vista.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get to just a couple more of these fun questions, okay? So we've already talked about projects. I know the funds you brought to Vista. One question I want to ask, which is fun, besides Joe Green, what is your favorite thing about the city of Vista, Mike?
Oh, man. My favorite thing about the city of Vista, I love the Moonlight Theater.
Moonlight,
I think that's amazing. We went a couple of years ago with my wife and kids. We got to go back.
Nice.
Let's see. I love my old campaign office in Vista. We don't get to see it anymore.
Okay.
But that's where I got started. We got started right down the street from here.
Got the roots.
I love a lot of the restaurants in Vista, too. Y'all have really grown pretty amazing downtown. area, and I love the Fraser Farms down the street.
Nice.
Can't beat that. But this is just a great community, man.
It really is. I'll tell you, Vista's one of a kind, man. We have the hills of Vista. We got planned developments in Vista. We got a little country living, got a little city living. But you're right. That Moonlight Amphitheater.
Amazing civic center.
That we do. I call it the Taj Mahal,
That's
actually.
right.
A little bigger than we probably needed. But hey, we were looking forward to the future.
Totally.
Maybe someday we'll have a congressman establishing residency there.
You never
Who
know.
knows?
You never know.
But I'll tell you what, I actually just spent last night with my wife and daughter, went to the Moonlight, and we watched The Wedding Singer. And it's one of the new plays that's there. And for those of you that don't know, the Moonlight Amphitheater has Broadway quality plays under the moonlight stars and amazing temperatures with great food. Pop a bottle of bubbly and bring your loved ones. Before I had you here, I thought you might say you like the Moonlight. So I've already spoken with city staff, and we have tickets for you and your family to any play you'd like this summer at the Moonlight.
Excellent.
And we also have tickets for you and the family to go to the Wave this year, which we've just rejuvenated our water slides.
Wow.
We got the Flow Rider there, the Lazy River, which your cell phone doesn't work in the Lazy River, Congressman. So we'd like to make sure that we give you all that. And before I
will check with House Ethics to see what we can take.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, we're going to donate.
We'll pay with our own money if we have to.
But we're going to give them to your office, and they can decide what they want to do, whether you give them to the community or not. But we just think this is a great asset for our community.
I've never been to the Wave Water Park, actually.
I'll tell you what, we have a tubular slide that's super closed in, and you got to go like this. I barely fit through it. You'd probably fit better. But super fast, super dark, and you forget what it was like to be a 10-year-old boy.
Oh, man. I love it.
One thing I want to do is I know that you have a heart for our veterans, and we have a heart for our veterans in Vista. My grandpa actually served in World War II as well. When I was elected in 2016, a little before I was elected, Jim Woods, the mayor of Oceanside, gave me their Oceanside Challenge coin, and I found out we didn't have one in the city of Vista. And as you know, in the military, they give challenge coins out all the time for people who serve their communities well. Well, the city of Vista, we have a mission, all right?
You got it.
And we have new resident reward coins here in Vista. And for those of you that don't know the mission of the city of Vista, I'm going to tell it to you. I know our congressman does, but he is one of the examples of our mission. So the mission of the city of Vista is this. The city is dedicated to exceptional services, to improving Vista's quality of life, and to enhancing the uniqueness of the Vista community. Congressman Levin, your work up in Washington has definitely helped improve the quality of life of our community. And Lord knows the exceptional service you provide our people is second to none. And you just being here enhances the uniqueness of our community.
You're awesome, man.
So,
thank you.
On behalf of my mayor, the entire city of Vista, and everybody that you serve, please accept this resident reward token.
Thank you, brother.
And thank you for serving us.
This is cool.
We hope that you will come back here again with us in another year or so to give us an update on what's going on.
I would love to do that, and I will proudly display this challenge coin. I have a challenge coin display in my office in D.C., and this will be there. And I think this is the first challenge coin I've seen with the mission right on it.
There you go.
Very cool. We have one. I didn't bring it.
Okay.
But next time I'll bring you.
You know what? If you don't have your
challenge
challenge coin at a bar with the serviceman, you got to buy him a drink. So I'm drinking some alkaline Carlsbad water right now. Let it be known. I expect a bottle soon.
Is that allowed in Vista?
It was brought in by the production team, so I'm not
Okay.
really sure. But
All right.
we partner with Carlsbad, one of our sister cities. We're all family in North San
For
Diego.
those who are listening to this or watching this before June 14th, which is coming up,
Okay.
the congressional baseball game is going to be coming up on June 14th.
And what position do you play?
I'm going to be playing left field, I believe. It's up to Coach Linda Sanchez. She's, she's very tough.
Okay.
So wherever she puts me in, I'm going to play. But one of these years, I got to wear Vista High School. This year, I'm wearing Carlsbad High School.
Okay.
And so we got to make this happen, Joe.
We'll make it happen.
Maybe
we
next
could
year.
even do half Rancho, half Vista custom jersey for our favorite congressman.
Well, I want to wear Vista just to be able to represent the city. And then maybe the next year we'll do RBV. How about that? That sound good? All right. But Oceanside is going to start to get jealous.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to make sure I wear
But you know
Oceanside
what?
one
They're
of these
going to
years
have
too.
to, try to step up their game a little bit, Congressman Levin. Because we're singing your praises from the mountaintops and accepting what you're giving to us with a smile every day. So the last question I have for you before you go here is just one more plug for your office, Congressman Levin.
Yes.
If anybody wants to get connected to you, who's the person they talk to at your office? What number do they call, and how can they do that?
The number again is 760-599-5000. You can send us a message via our website. It's levin.house.gov.
Right at the bottom of the screen.
Perfect. And you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's Rep Mike Levin is my handle. That's REPMIKELEVIN. and I hold town halls every month.
Wow.
We've done, actually, in June, it's 100. It's our 100th town hall.
Wow.
We're pretty excited about that. It's going to be in Del Mar. It's not in Vista, but we'll have one in Vista soon.
That's West Vista. I mean, it's a little west, but we'll still take it from you, Mike. So,
perfect, man.
Well, hey, I thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for coming in. Just thank you for being a guy, man.
Thank you, Joe.
A guy with a family, with
Appreciate
a mission. You were made on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose, and we appreciate you,
I love that, man. I love that. Well, you inspire me. Thank you for all the work you're doing for this community. Appreciate
Mr.
you.
Levin,
You got it,
thanks
man.
again, sir.
Thanks, Joe.
Congressman, 49th District, Mike Levin, here in Vista, talking about everything he's doing. Thanks for watching Councilman's Corner. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Joe Green 760. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and anywhere else you can find us. We love you, Vista. Thanks again, Congressman Levin. We are out. Woo!
I think Joe needs a career in this. What do you guys think?